The West Virginia Secretary of State, Mac Warner, elected in the November elections on our show last week, made the point that there would be satellite offices opening up around the state. One of those would be in the Eastern Panhandle. And we now say good morning to Darrell Shull, who will be manning the Eastern Panhandle Secretary of State's office. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you for having me on this morning.
You pointed out that you've been in our studio before because you've managed some campaigns in the past, I guess.
Well, helped friends who are running. I think it's always good to be involved in politics and issues in your community.
Who were some of the candidates you were involved with over the years?
Oh, a handful. Our prosecuting attorney, our sheriff, a few others.
Okay, so you made the rounds a little bit, so to speak. And you live in Martinsburg now.
I lived here for 14 years.
Okay, and the office of the Secretary of State in the Eastern Panhandle will be located where?
It's going to be in Martinsburg. We're looking at several properties right now. Secretary Warner's directive is that it has to come in at or under budget. I think you know that his goal was to be able to consolidate spending and keep costs very reasonable. We're saving by closing a Fairmont office, moving it to Clarksburg, leaving enough money in the budget to open that much-needed office here in the Eastern Panhandle. And
what is the benefit to Eastern Panhandle residents of having a Secretary of State's office located in Martinsburg?
Secretary of State does a lot. Registers new businesses, registers charities, assists the county clerks in performing their duties. Secretary Warner wants to be an asset to those county clerks. Assists voters when candidates file for office. They have to drop off their candidate statements and have them received. So currently, their options are to go to Fairmont, go to Charleston, or to mail those in. Berkeley County last year was the fastest growing county in the state of West Virginia. It's an economic engine for the state of West Virginia. It's an important area. The entire Eastern Panhandle is. And so Secretary Warner wanted to make certain that those services were available locally.
You know, it really does make sense when you think of it, because I'm looking back to when I started a business a while back, and it would have been nice to have just gone down and filed all the paperwork, right at a local Secretary of State's office. What other of the officers, the statewide officers, have local offices in the Eastern Panhandle? Attorney General, or what are some of the others?
I understand that Attorney General has a Consumer Protection Office here on Edwin Miller Boulevard.
Right.
I'm not aware of others, though. Of course, our federal delegation has offices here in the area.
So the Secretary of State will have an office in the Eastern Panhandle, located in its biggest city, Martinsburg, which makes sense. And then also in Clarksburg, when you move the Fairmont office there, and then obviously the main office in Charleston. So we have 3 offices altogether.
3 offices, but 7 field representatives. So it's a large state. Here in Martinsburg, we're closer to the capitals of 4 other states. 5, that's correct. 5 other states. But that's the case everywhere. If you're in the northern panhandle, the very southern part of West Virginia, Charleston sometimes is a long way away. So while there won't be offices in all 7 of those regions, there are regional representatives out helping the county clerks in any way that the Secretary of State's office can, helping businesses in their registration, and doing those things that we'll be doing in the Martinsburg office.
Your boss, Mac Warner, made reference to some efforts that it was a response to a question that I asked him. Are dead people voting in West Virginia? And Rob, if I remember correctly, he more or less said,
watch for the news.
Watch for the news, yeah. And I haven't heard any news yet. Have you, Rob?
Not yet, no. I guess Darrell had said some investigations were underway, and they're waiting for clarification of some information from Pennsylvania before they're ready to finalize that report.
Exactly. Do you have any new information on that, Darrell, at all? Can you give us a progress report on that?
I don't have information on specific cases. Field representatives aren't involved in the investigation process of the Secretary of State. There's some very qualified investigators working out of Charleston. But I can tell you, and you've probably seen the news on this, that working with our county clerks and providing the tools the Secretary of State's office can, 36,000 duplicate or expired registrations have been removed from the rolls across the state. Accurate voter rolls are so important.
Oh, yeah.
Very important. So 36,000 to date. At the same
and most of those removed because they've passed away or moved or a combination of all the above?
For various reasons. Somebody might move from Jefferson County to Berkeley County.
Failed to re-register? Could that be a reason?
Re-registered in Berkeley County, but never canceled their registration in Jefferson County.
I see, okay.
And that's fine. You don't need to cancel your registration. So we work and provide the tools so that the county clerks, who are ultimately responsible, are able to keep those voter rolls accurate. At the same time, we're adding new voters to the rolls. 2 weeks ago, we were in the schools across the state registering students. Right here in Berkeley County, between Spring Mills and Hedgesville High School, more than 150 students registered for the first time with the assistance of our county clerk.
Will you have a roll come election time, let's say? I mean, the Secretary of State obviously is responsible for making sure, along with the county clerks, I guess, to make sure that the election process runs smoothly. What role will the regional representative have in that process, and how do you think you make that process better by being here locally?
First of all, the field representatives are a conduit between our county clerks and our town recorders and city clerks, because we have municipal elections as well. We're a conduit between them, for them, with the Secretary of State's office. So if any issue pops up, either on election day or prior or afterwards, we can help speed getting the right person involved, the right expert from the Secretary's office to assist them. But ultimately, the county clerks are responsible for voter registration and running their elections. The Secretary feels that his role is to be supportive of our county clerks in every way we possibly can. Additionally, candidates need to file statewide candidates and multi-county candidates need to file their finance reports, their declarations of intent, their candidacy papers with the Secretary of State's office. So having a local office will be able to assist them in doing that same day. They won't have to mail it in or drive to Charleston to do so. I heard from the folks that run our current Fairmont office that during election filing time, they had people stacked up several deep in their office filing their candidacy papers. It'll be nice to be able to do that locally.
I want to make one note of something, Rob, that seems unusual to me, that so often an elected official does not allow their staff people to go on the air and talk or to be interviewed in the media. And
Very true.
And so this is kind of a departure. I find it to be a welcome one myself.
Refreshing, actually. Yeah.
It really is.
Mm-hmm. Well, Secretary Warner strongly feels that his field representatives are his contacts in the counties around the state. And he has given us a wide portfolio, holds us very accountable to that portfolio. But he wants us to be out there talking to people at every opportunity we have.
Darrell Shull is our guest here at Eastern Panhandle Talk with Rob and Dave. He is the field representative, I guess, is your official title for the Eastern Panhandle out of the Secretary of State's office. Darrell, when your office is finally located and staffed and up and running, how many people will be inside the office, including yourself?
I think that's dependent on budget decisions that they're working on right now. They want to be able to staff it to the level that's appropriate and within the means of the office without having to spend more than is currently being budgeted. And also, my duties are not just Berkeley County, but they're the greater Eastern Panhandle, all 8 counties, stretching down to Pendleton as well.
Do you know Bill Clark, the Region 9 director?
I do not know.
Yeah, you need to get to know Bill, because Bill has routinely gets all of you guys that represent politicians together, and they have interesting roundtable discussions. And so I would recommend that. And it reminds me too that there's quite a few people. I mean, our congressman has a regional rep. Our U.S. senator has a regional rep. I think the governor has always had a regional representative in the Eastern Panhandle. So this is not new, but it's in addition to
letting him talk is though.
Letting him talk is letting him talk is. Well, you're right about that.
Maybe after today that won't be the case. But as of this morning, they have ultimate confidence in me.
You brought us food, so it'd be a shame if they stopped it from coming in.
We only have 5 minutes to end this. Then I'm trying to think of what we could ask him that would get him in trouble. I'm just kidding you.
Darrell, typically, let's say in the Fairmont office, how many people were in there?
They had 2 folks currently in the Fairmont office. We have a manager of that office, and we have a front office person who's taking the filings as well. And I think that in the past they might have had some additional folks there in that office, but they're staffing that with 2 currently.
And is that a usual 9 to 5 type of operation?
It is in the Fairmont office. I think we have to look at the unique needs of this area and schedule the hours in a way that's going to be most useful to folks. Now, remember, this is day 5 for me on the job.
Sure.
And so we're looking for office locations and trying to figure out the best way to serve the citizens of the Eastern Panhandle.
Will you be traveling throughout the 8 counties as part of your job?
Absolutely. Meeting with the county clerks. The county clerks handle voter registration, but the Secretary of State's office provides the statewide voter registration systems, which help them in keeping their rolls, in keeping them clean, in registering new folks. And the Secretary's office is working on a lot of new technical improvements to that system to help our county clerks. So I'll be with the county clerks, finding out what they need, conveying that to the office, and then reporting back.
What do you think the Secretary of State's role is in educating or getting involved with outreach kinds of programs to get more people interested in voting and in the political process? Or is that the role of the Secretary of State? Because as we usually have pretty low voter turnout. Mm-hmm. Not that that's a bad or a good thing. If you don't want to vote, don't vote. I don't care, personally. It's your individual choice. But is the Secretary of State's office looking at ways to get, let's say, more younger people involved in the process? Outreach communications programs, for example.
A very good question. First, on voter turnout. As we improve our voter rolls and make certain that everyone on those voter rolls are eligible to vote, the voter turnout numbers actually improve. There were some counties not in the Eastern Panhandle, but where a significant number of the folks on their rolls were not eligible voters in that county for various reasons. And so the voter turnout numbers were artificially suppressed because of that. Accurate rolls mean accurate turnout numbers. Accurate turnout numbers mean greater enthusiasm from the voting public. They think their vote means more in those cases. We work with several programs around the state. Recently, we were in the high schools in Spring Mills and Hedgesville at the invitation of our county clerk with a program called Inspire West Virginia, who works to make certain that our schools are registering 100% of their eligible voters in their senior class every year. When they do, they become a Jennings-Randolph school, which is a high honor in this state. And their students that are leading that are eligible to become honorary secretaries of state through the Secretary Warner's office. He's hosted several honorary secretaries of state. We have at least 2 schools in the area that are on the cusp of making that honor this year.
The Secretary mentioned during his appearance with us last week that part of his job was to repair some relations with county clerks around the state of West Virginia who thought that they were not getting the, for lack of a better word, efficient attention they deserved under then Secretary of State Natalie Tennant. Is that going to be part of your job description as well as you go throughout your 8 counties?
What the former secretary may or may not have done is not as important as how valuable Secretary Warner sees the relationship between county clerks and the Secretary of State's office. And he is pledged to make the office as useful to those counties as possible. And he has charged his field representatives with meeting with them regularly, getting good and bad feedback on everything that happens so that we can continually improve the processes of the Secretary of State's office. So, yes, it is a major component of what I'll be doing.
Has the removal of voters who are no longer eligible to vote in Berkeley County begun yet? Are you aware of that?
The counties in the Eastern Panhandle have been very good, and our county clerks are very good at their job. And Berkeley County has been continuously engaging in that process. What the Secretary of State's office brings to it is some additional databases into that statewide voter registration system to make the process smoother for our county clerks, so that here in Berkeley County, they'll be able to do those activities more efficiently. But they have done an excellent job through the years in keeping our voter rolls very clean here in Berkeley County.
I imagine it's got to be quite complex to try to find out who's no longer eligible to vote in any given county due to trying to track down all the information that would make somebody ineligible. Move, death, haven't voted. I assume if you haven't voted in like 6 straight elections, you're probably not eligible to vote again. At some point, you have to re-register.
Felons serving their sentence. There are lots of factors, all defined in code. Mm-hmm. And all clearly defined. There are processes for doing that. But there's a difference between taking a paper list of 1,000 people who may match because they have a change of address file in, or having it on a statewide system that makes it easier for the clerks to be able to do that. Secretary Warner's office is working to add to that online system so that it's more accurate, it's more timely. The last thing I think anybody involved in the political process wants is to have inaccurate voter rolls or have people on the voter rolls who may not be eligible to vote. That dilutes the power of everyone else's vote.
How will your website be on election night? And that may be more of a Secretary Warner question than for you, but just a quick one there at the end. Do you have any involvement in the website?
I don't have involvement in the website. I was down in Charleston last week training on everything the office does. It's tremendous, the work that they do down there, and the people that are doing that are top-notch. So I'm confident that we'll be pleased.
Darrell, thanks so much for coming by.
Thank you. I appreciate the time this morning.